Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today I am ranting and I'm not entirely sure how coherent it's going to be as usual because as usual there's something new wrong with me health-wise, and so I'm on medication and I'm actually supposed to be taking it really easy, and I'm not because I don't. I'm a really bad example. Don't do what I do. I'm digressing. I want to rant about something that I'm seeing on Witch Talk, which in all honesty I've spent entirely too much time on while I've been recovering from the latest in a long line of illnesses. And in order to rant about this, I'm gonna have to talk about something that happened to me in my own past, and I really hope that it is not triggering or traumatic to any of you, but I'm also asking that you not trivialize it for me. So, trigger warnings for cis-centric nonsense. And I'm going to be really harsh about gender essentialism, so it's going to get into gender essentialism. Those of you who've been with us for a while, you know that I've ranted about the harm of gender essentialism before. I'll go ahead and say I do have a rant about it. I'll link somewhere above. I'm not going to get into it in detail during this rant. Those of you who've, again, been with us a while, you know that I'm non-binary. You know that I don't identify as either male or female, although I really don't care the pronouns that someone uses for me. I deeply am invested in using the correct pronouns for other people. I recognize the validity of having strict pronoun usage for yourself. I don't care. That's not trying to invalidate other people caring about it. So, right, I'm non-binary. And again, those of you who've been with us a while know that I'm no longer going by my dead name. That there was a name that I went by that was assigned to me at birth, and it is no longer the name that I'm writing under. It is no longer the name that I'm calling myself. And in all honesty, it hasn't been the name that I've called myself with my friends and family for 20 years, maybe longer. But I had a legal name that I went by for a long time before really embracing who I am. The story that I'm going to share is from when my partner and I ran a witchcraft store and community center before we decided to focus on running a seminary and really on the educational aspects of our nonprofit, which is what we're doing now. And one of the reasons for leaving that behind was health. And one of the reasons for leaving that behind was the overwhelming, destructive disappointment that I have in the pagan, occult, esoteric, and New Age communities, the magical communities, the witchcraft communities, and in the interfaith communities. And just the same problems that I encountered over and over and over again. Over time, I may decide to write and or talk about more of it, but right now I want to focus on one particular issue and rant about it because I'm seeing it on TikTok. I'm going to share a story with you, and then I'll rant about it a little bit because I never really got to, and maybe it'll be cathartic to do so to all of you. I hope so, instead of re-traumatizing. So, I was helping out with the organization of a large pagan event. I'm not going to name it I had other issues with it that may turn into rants as well, but it was a large pagan event that was put on in a very big city, and I was part of the organizing committee. Um, I was part of the organizing committee twice. I resigned over one issue. Leadership changed, and I agreed to come back and try again, and ended up resigning again. What I'm about to rant about wasn't why I resigned. It was something much, much worse. And I'm vaguely embarrassed how many horrible things had to happen before I finally said I couldn't keep trying to make the organization better from within. Um, it took me a long time to finally say that I was done, and I wish I'd done it a lot sooner. I wish I'd done it a lot sooner for many things, but I'm digressing again. So we were trying to find a neutral location where we could all meet, because there were heads of different temples, circles, groves, covens, etc., all on this organizing committee, all from different branches of paganism, and some of who had really terrible history with each other and disliked each other, some of whom had really contrary perspectives on things, and we're all trying to find somewhere neutral to operate. I'm not going to name where we wound up operating, although I will say that they have since closed, so I wouldn't be denigrating or disparaging a place that is still operating. They've closed. We ended up going there because they offered us their table, you know, the long table with all the chairs around it and the little coffee pot to have our meetings at, to organize this event. And the very first time that I needed to use a restroom, and I hate to even discuss this on camera, but I needed to use the facilities at one of these meetings. I asked where it was, and it turned out that these two doors that I had noticed but not paid much attention to, one of which was labeled Goddess and one of which was labeled God, were the restrooms at this place. Now, I have issues with the way bathrooms, restrooms, places to handle your personal ablutions are handled in the United States regardless. I have issues. I didn't think that restrooms should be gendered. I think that it should just be, you know, a single stall with a closing locking door with a changing table in it so that you can take care of your children, and that there should just be one base model that everyone makes use of. I'm aware that I'm outnumbered by the majority of the United States population, but that's what I think restrooms should be. I don't think that they should be a gendered thing. But additionally, to label them God and Goddess, I wasn't going to make a thing of it. This wasn't my place. It wasn't my place to say anything. I mean, literally, this organization had their perspective on things, spiritually, magically, from their religious perspective. And it did not align with mine, but we were in their territory and they had a right to label the doors however they like. I ended up sort of jokingly commenting that I was neither a god nor a goddess, but that I would thankfully, gratefully use the facilities regardless. And the high priestess of this organization started pushing rather aggressively in front of an entire table of my colleagues that I was a goddess and I needed to recognize this. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm neither a god nor a goddess. I am a person, and that is all the power that I need. She said, "But you're a goddess." It's like, no, I am not. I am a person, and that is all the power that I need. She said, "I hope you eventually recognize your divine womanhood." I'm not a woman either. And she sort of backed off, and I went to use the facilities. Now, at this time, I was not legally allowed to drive myself anywhere. It wasn't safe for me to do so. I was really sick. I'm getting better now. As much as I keep having health difficulties, I am actually getting better. So my apprentice had driven me to this meeting. My apprentice said that after I left the room to use the facility, this person led the entire table in discussing how I was actually a divine being, a goddess, not some kind of non-binary divine entity, and that I would eventually be forced to recognize this about myself, and that she hoped, out of the goodness of her heart, that this would be a gentle experience for me, rather than the universe making me recognize it. This was the leader of a spiritual and religious organization, leading my colleagues, my contemporaries, the professionals with whom I had a working relationship, to discuss, without me present, both my gender identity and expression, and the fact that I had to recognize myself as a divine entity, or the universe would teach me a lesson. Now, I'm trying to use some vague language here. This is not exact quotes. I'm trying to obfuscate who it is that I'm kvetching about. I'm not trying to call anyone out by name. Y'all already know my issues with the gender part of this and the harm of gender essentialism, so I'm not going to rant about that. But what I want to take a moment to rant about is something I'm seeing on Witch Talk as well, which is this idea that if you are any kind of occult, esoteric, new age, pagan person, you will inevitably come to this recognition that you are a divine entity, that you are in some way supposed to achieve your godhead, that you are supposed to try to be an otherworldly entity of divine power. I don't want to be. Here are a few things that I want to make clear for those of you who watch our channel. I don't care what you're trying to do. You do you. There are a few things I will actively and purposefully and vehemently oppose and fight you on, like if you're harming someone else. But by and large, as long as you are keeping it to the length of your own nose, you do you. I will also do me, right? And you can make whatever dirty jokes you want to about that phrasing. I am not a god. I am not a goddess. I am not a deity. I am not attempting to achieve my godhead, and that is not the goal of my witchcraft. I am a person, and that is enough power for me, because that is a lot of power. I believe that a person can stand against a god, that a witch can go toe to toe with any deity that they need to, and I do not believe that we need to be anything other than a person in order to do so. I am not attempting to achieve my godhead. I am not attempting to ascend. I am not attempting to achieve enlightenment. Enlightenment is not my aim. Enlightenment is not my goal. And my path is just as valid as anyone else's. And when people appropriate and steal from various Eastern traditions in order to say that we all need to embrace these otherworldly, divine, limitless abilities in order to achieve enlightenment, and that must be the goal, they're often, though not always, I'm not saying every Eastern discipline has this concept, but they're often, though not always, leaving out paths in those traditions wherein people can have a fulfilling and successful spiritual journey by fucking and eating and having kids and loving their animals and enjoying their garden. Again, I digress. My path, which embraces the full spectrum of my human emotions and which focuses on protecting this world and not just the spiritual planes, and in which trying to become some kind of god isn't at all my aim, is just as valid as someone who's trying to attain their godhead. And to wish that the universe would teach me to embrace it. And to passive aggressively hope that that's a gentle thing. Let's assume that the universe is sentient and invested. Let's assume for a moment that the universe gives a fuck about each and every individual one of us. Why wouldn't it want us to just be us? Why would it do that, give a fuck about every single person, if it wanted all of us to be gods? And before you go, oh, but there are the special chosen few, which, ew. If the universe is sentient and invested, and that's an if, then I would think, in my very limited perspective, that it would be invested in experiencing itself through us as we are, human, limited, flawed. I think when we start assuming that it's better to be bigger, then we start saying that the little things don't matter, and they do. Little things like disrespecting your professional colleagues' firm statements as to their gender and their spiritual and religious beliefs, and mocking them behind their back, those things matter. And saying, well, I'm a goddess, it doesn't lift you beyond them. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. I'm a person, and that is enough power and responsibility for me. Thank you all for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe, and please send us things that you want us to answer in Ask a Witch or Ask an Herbalist or rant about, or other things that you want us to cover in our longer, more educational videos. I just got a request to come back to the Witch's Poison series, potentially refilm those and get those back up. So that's going to be one of the things I'm focusing on over the next few weeks. I also got a request to get back into our Blood and Bones series, so we'll probably be doing that as well. Whether you are a god, a goddess, or a non-binary divine entity, or a person, I hope that you're safe out there. And I hope that you remember that your choices go beyond your nose and affect those around you. So try to make good ones.